Welcome to another edition of the Brazilian Shirt Name podcast. I am Radio Dotun, and he is...
Whatever insult you want to throw my way this week, Dotun, old son.
Well, I'll throw the Legendino one. That will resonate with a lot of people. You like that one, don't you?
Yeah. I'm not proud. I'll answer to anything.
Well, it was much better than Tildo, wasn't it?
Yes.
Well, less said about that, the better. Good. I'm glad so we can concentrate on the football then, because as all the Brazilian Shirt Name podcast, we take a look at an iconic game from the past and sort of try and get the sense of time and place around it as well. I'm delighted to say that we've got Lewis Royden with us from the Everton Heritage Society. And what a time to have you on the Brazilian Shirt Name podcast, eh?
Yeah, it's good timing, I think, with the news of Rooney coming back to the country. Also, I read it this morning. I don't know if it was before that, but yeah, it's always good news to have legends back in England, eh?
Obviously, like a lot of teams, particularly those who have been on the wrong end of the table lately, they have caught the interest of overseas buyers, haven't they? Where are we at in that stage of Everton's heritage?
It's a good question. I think a lot of it's up in the air at the moment. I don't know how many people can claim to be an expert on how far along a deal is, but yeah, it looks like it's more or less done with 777. They've split the fan group again, I think, in terms of whether it's exactly what we want, whether they're the right guys to take us forward. But yeah, it's never easy being an Evertonian, is it? So it's just another day, really, in our long and illustrious history, you know.
I think we need some escapism. I think that's the only possible route. I think it was 20 years ago today that Sergeant Pepper and other great things coming out of Liverpool taught the world how to play football. It's one of those. The game that we're talking about today, we're going back to October the 19th, 2002. It's actually 21 years ago. My maths was never my strong point, but there you go. It's one of those, some of the greatest moments the fan can ever have, when you're getting your first glimpse of something really, really special, and it's yours.
Yeah, it certainly felt that way at the time. You know, I mean, from my perspective as well, I wanted to kind of jump even slightly before the 19th, which was the 1st of October. We had a cup game. It was the Worthington Cup, as it was then. We were away at Wrexham, and that was the first day that Rooney really that he appeared to us. We knew about him through family, friends, and stuff like that, you know, from before he appeared as a youngster, and for him to burst onto the scene, as they say in that Wrexham game, maybe half an hour left, and we've been telling people, you know, this is the kid, this is what we've heard about this boy since he was 10, you know, neighbours and family friends all saying, have you heard about that little Wayne, you know? And yeah, he comes on with about half an hour to play against Wrexham, I think, and he bagged two great goals, nutmegged the keeper, which is his first ever goal. So I could say I was there for that, which was, you know, starts to get you a little bit excited. And of course, as you say, the real moment for everybody was on the 19th, wasn't it? That incredible Arsenal team that had just been sweeping aside everybody that they'd faced, came to Goodison. And well, I think most people know Goodison Park, when you face with a big side and a big threat, the crowd lifts for it. And of course, when a youngster comes on as well, it's exactly what you want to see, isn't it?
They still show that clip everywhere. It takes you back to that moment, but they show that clip because it's a real immortal moment. You know, when you think back on English football, actually, a kid, he really did look like a kid coming onto that pitch of big men. You'd seen it beforehand. If you don't mind me just jumping the gun a little bit on that match day, how much better, if you like, was what you'd seen on that day from what you'd seen before?
this was an era of Everton where we weren't exactly, world beaters. There was a team of like real dogged, try hard players, and up front we had Thomas Rudzinski and Kevin Campbell at the time. They were the 2-star strikers. Funnily enough, Rudzinski had been brought in to replace Francis Franny Jeffers, who was on the bench that day for Arsenal. Obviously, many boos rang around for his name being read out on the team sheet. He'd gone for the money, as we say, But that, there was a young Scouse prospect. Everyone thought he was going to be the next big thing in Franny Jeffers, and he'd scored a few goals. He looked like a real star.
Box in the box.
Exactly. But then when you hear of a 15-year-old, or he was about to turn 17, I believe, when that game was played, and you hear about he could be something. And when you play in Liverpool as well, when amongst your mates, and admittedly, I'm speaking in hindsight. I was a youngster at the time, but you do get to know local players, and it's tough. The tough local leagues around here, and you've got to be good to shine in Liverpool, I think, at any level. But then for a child, basically, to be making it onto the pitch at that age and against arguably one of the best football teams this country's ever seen, and in what became the Invincibles immediately after, he was an extraordinary player. And to have done it for the longevity that he had as well throughout his career was remarkable. But you hope he's not just going to be a flash in the pan at that age, that young age. But no, we all know now he kept it up, didn't he, for a good decade or so.
So it's Arsenal who are coming to Goodison Park, 30 games unbeaten, and Everton. And you described the side brilliantly. It's solid. Not particularly inspired, but certainly not relegation candidates back then, is it? It's kind of solidity. I always wonder how, because I always have this romantic idea of Everton and the academy. How were you coping then with scrapping solidity?
It's what we want, really, in a way, in the sense that it's what the crowd love to see. I think we were just kind of at the dawn, football, the Premier League was just at the dawn of that kind of money bags era as Abramovich had come over and things like that. And so even to the late 90s, you want just a team full of players that'll fight for the shirt, regardless of how much they cost and if there's big names. And obviously everybody wants that, really, but as a Scouse crowd and a loyal Goodison crowd, I think those types of players, we had Tommy Gravison and Lee Carsley in the middle of the park, and David Weir, Unsworth, Tony Hibbert as well, by the way, who's an absolute hero of mine, cult hero. I'd like to remind you all that he pocketed Thierry Henry on that day. He was just a youngster, but these are lads who, they're not going to light the world up, but just throwing tackles in left, right, and centre, and that's the sort of stuff that keeps you away from relegation fights. Is playing for the name on the front of the shirt, as they say.
One of the things that really struck me, just I didn't watch the entire night. I kind of flicked through. What struck me was how bad it is.
Yeah,
Even like you said, Arsenal, one of the best sides. Obviously, I couldn't leave that one unanswered. But they were an outstanding side. But it made me think how much the game has progressed. The English game has progressed in the subsequent times, because no one keeps the ball for longer than 5 seconds. It's like
you're right.
it's like a tennis match. Your neck aches from watching it.
Absolutely. If you're when you're in the stands, though, these are the kind of games that you relish. It was on a knife edge. A lot of people would have expected Arsenal to have run away with it. We weren't in great form. They obviously, as you say, 30 games unbeaten. They were absolute superstars. They went 1-0 up as well, quite inside the first 10 minutes with a scrappy goal. I say scrappy as Arsenal can be. Henry had crossed one from the left, I believe, and just defenders not trying their hard enough to get on the end of it. It fell for Freddie Ljungberg, and he put them 1-0 up, which you then start to not necessarily get edgy that early in a game, but you think, okay, the superstars are going to run away. But no, it was much more, yeah, scrappy than you'd have thought. But I put it down to the fact that, you know, we were never going to be great on the ball on that day, and we stopped Arsenal playing, you know, with those big personalities and just standing up to be counted. You know, Gravison against Vieira in the midfield is a good idea of the way the match has gone. Really, those two shone for their own teams, I think.
How comes you've got such a good memory, man?
Yeah, no,
it's amazing memory. How old were you at the time?
I was 11 at the time, I think. Then, but you know, I've lived through an era that we haven't got a lot to shout about here as Evertonians. I've listened to all my dad's stories, and as you meant, you know, with working with the Heritage Society, you know, I hear a lot of our history and a lot of our stories of our illustrious past, but I don't have loads to draw on. I could have chatted to you about many miserable times I've had at Goodison, but keep it happy, you know.
Well, you got to have a balance. So whenever you're ready to come back with that
does that mean that in your life as a supporter, the highlight is those few seasons you got to watch Wayne Rooney? Is that the best that you've got?
Kind of. I wouldn't. God, it sounds really depressing when you put it like that. Yeah, I mean, I saw the FA Cup win in '95, so I've got at least a trophy. Charity Shields count as well. I'll keep reminding.
Of course they do.
No, of course they do.
Is your name Jose Mourinho?
Yeah, take it. I'll take everything I can get at this point. But yeah, I mean, there's particular players that I've really enjoyed seeing over the years. I mean, the Moyes era of us getting, obviously, we got into the Champions League, got fourth place. We played fantastic football then. I always loved watching Baines and Pienaar on the left hand side, like those two. Throughout, I mean, they lasted for nearly a decade together. I thought that still one of the most underrated pairings of players that I've seen in the Premier League. I thought they were phenomenal. Of course, Mikel Arteta was a great player in our side as well. But and then there's a couple of semi-finals, cup finals that I can bring up and that I remember. I mean, 2009, I think we should have beaten Chelsea in the FA Cup final. Louis Saha had scored the fastest ever goal until was that beaten recently? I think there was a quick one.
Yes, I think you're right.
Rodri,
yes.
Was it?
Yeah.
But yeah, back in 2009, we went 1-0 up and should have won the game, but Frank Lampard scored 2. I've got. Do we have to go through all my negative memories? I've got Lukaku missing a penalty in the semi-final when Baines had never missed one, and he took the ball off him against United.
Well, like a typical Evertonian, I asked you about the high point, and you just
dive
low.
That's it. I'm just trying to put it in perspective, you know.
But then, what is it that's not right then? Because there should be more highs than lows, shouldn't there? As a football supporter, rarely is that achieved, but nevertheless, there should be more highs than lows. I wonder what is it that's not gone right for Everton? Because you've just named a lot of the great players. It's once you start naming the players and people remember, you know, and how the solidity that Tim talked about perhaps was down to...
Remember, you know, in Lineker, he played for Barcelona. He played for the mighty Tottenham Hotspur. But if you ask him what was the best team that he played in, even better than the mine, it's Everton. I think, you know, it's easy to forget how great that side. Just before Lewis joined us on this planet, it's easy to forget how great that side were. You know, and
that's it. If you're looking for a turning point, you know, if you're looking for the turning point, it's when I came along to try and enjoy some of it. That's when it all went wrong.
Or it could have been when David Moyes went.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of debate you can have over the last kind of 10, 15 years as to why potential hasn't been reached as well. You know, I mean, to focus on that David Moyes era, of course, that kind of began with Rooney and that Arsenal game kind of kick-started a real solid side that Moyes had for a good decade. That we were really proud of, and of course he coined us as the people's club, you know, and While the guys across the
Politics.
park,
That's politics, isn't it?
yeah, the guys across the park have got a few more pennies to spend than us, and they should be fighting a little bit higher. But you know, the locals turn out to Goodison and all that. So he had the fans on side. He had the type of players that we all want to see and cheer for. And I mean, I always talk about Goodison being one of the best places to hear fans cheering for a tackle. You know, sometimes a tackle goes in and the crowd goes up like we've scored the last minute winner, you know. So he really tuned into that. And then come to the end of his era, he would have been replaced by Roberto Martinez. I think it was maybe 2012, maybe 2013. And we had this kind of perfect hybrid of solid Moyes defense and exciting Martinez attack. You know, you score 4, we'll score 5 kind of football. And then Mashiri came in with his money, and we start thinking, okay, well, here you've got a great David Moyes side, which can now be elevated to the next level with the right signings. And I think that was the turning point, to be honest, where, you know, we became an example of how not to spend your money and who not to trust, and not to say who not to trust, but there were better ways of doing it. You know, you look at the way City built, you know, with their few key signings early on, and built obviously, of course, we've got the ground going up now, but they laid the foundations to build on over a number of years. But Ronald Koeman signed about 10 number 10s, I think. Funnily enough, in bringing Rooney back to the side as well. So it does all come full circle, but yeah, could have gone a lot better in those early teens, would you say? Yeah.
We will return to the game, but I wonder if you would mind revealing your link to Wayne Rooney, your family link to Wayne Rooney.
It's not a strong one as such.
Well,
it is more the stories, really. It was so when I was really young, I would have been, 8, 9, 10 years old. There was a gentleman who came round I think he was either a bin man or he was a guy that cleaned the bins. He was like a local service guy, stand-up fella in the community, He was a big Everton fan and found out that my parents were Everton fans. And you know how it is. You chat to the milkman and all that kind of thing. And they'd always talk about, oh, my nephew Wayne, he's quality, he's only a young lad and he's doing really well for himself. And I don't know, we always laugh about it because my mum would say things like, oh yeah, my Lewis is a cracking player as well. He's, scores a few goals on the school field and all that. Oh, yeah,
good right. For you, mate.
Good for me, eh?
You made it into the story. I love it.
Yeah, the comparisons exist, they have happened. But I was just a boy then, but it meant over the years he'd make a point of saying to me, Dad, like, he's doing well, our Wayne. He's been picked up by such and such under 12s, under 13s, or he'd be playing with the under 15s when he was 9 or whatever it may have been at the time. And then it was like, yeah, he's in the team this weekend. And that would have been for the Wrexham game in the Worthington Cup. And we went to that game, funnily enough, with my dad's friend who's a Wrexham fan. So was kind of crossing enemy lines that day. We were in the home end, and of course Rooney's named on the bench. We were 1-0 up half time, and we'd mentioned to the people around us, because they start to get cocky there. I believe Lee Trundle was up front for Wrexham. There's a name from the past as well. So he's it was that era, that generation of teams, and they were saying, Trundle's gonna pull it back, and you've got a game on your hands. And we'd said, well, there's a little teenager still to come yet, Everyone's saying, Wayne who? Never heard of him, Well, we know, I've heard of him. My dad's mate says he's great. And sure enough, he comes on and nutmegs the goalkeeper for his first ever goal. And then someone played him in down the right, and he got a second. Two goals in 6 minutes, I think it was. If I remember it right, it was quite a while ago. But that obviously meant I walked away from that match feeling pretty cocky, going, my mate Wayne scored the goals. Not that we've ever met or anything, but at that age you have that tenuous connection, don't you? Of like, oh, there's that kid that we know,
Yeah. Maybe you went to the same school with. Should we go back to this match?
Not quite.
No, I was only kidding.
Not quite. Close though. No, yeah, we're all neighbours around here, aren't we?
Should we go back to the match? So how did you manage to, stop the Invincibles, as it were? Do you remember?
And getting on level terms very early, which I think helps enormously, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It was. I don't think we started the game badly, as as we mentioned that we'd gone 1-0 down early, but it was against the run of play, and they hadn't. I don't think our goalkeeper had a shot to save really. But as you say, yeah, getting back on level terms within half an hour. I think it was on around 20 minutes, and I remember the goal as well. I remember because was it Lee Carsley? Right, Radzinski had taken a quick free kick in the middle. Kevin Campbell runs it on, or might have been Gravison actually. Lays it to the right, and it was one of the two bald-headed midfielders. Anyway, they always looked similar, didn't they? Carsley and Gravison. Either way, but between the two of them, they'd had a shot off the post from the right-hand side, and it fell back out to Thomas Radzinski, who equalised, as you say, within the first half an hour. And then it was just a case of breaking down everything that they threw at us. And they had such a fluid midfield. I always remember tuning in to watch that Arsenal team, even at that age, thinking how exciting they were. And, I've always loved watching Bergkamp and Henry together. But, fortunately, Bergkamp wasn't playing that day. But I remember Kolo Touré was on the right, and he was, with David Unsworth was at left back as well, so he was slightly out of position. So when you think about it along those terms as well, it was a tall order, but with these kind of solid players that we had in the midfield, and
pace up front.
Yeah,
because Radzinski's quick, isn't he? There's one early in the game when he's through, and Sol Campbell just comes across and does a fantastic tackle on him. And Kevin Campbell's quite quick as well, isn't he?
Yeah.
Quick and physical. So you've always got that to keep you in the game. I mean, even if it's kind of the majority of the team behind the ball, you've got an out ball with the pace of Radzinski and the power and the ability of Kevin Campbell.
You're right, and that was in the era of everyone loving the 4-4-2 as well. Like strike partnerships. Kevin Campbell had been brought in a few years earlier when we were in the relegation scrap, so he'd already kind of made his name for us as the guy that gets the ball over the line. Whether it's a big header or a scruffy one, he'll put them in. And as I said, I think it was Radzinski's first season for us, so he was still trying his hardest early in the year to like stamp his name on the team and endear himself to the crowd, which he did well. We love a striker that'll put himself about and make a mark on the game. He did that really well. I seem to remember as well. I mean, I've watched it back, and I remember because of course you will have been at the World Cup that year as well, right? 2002. Yeah. So it was shortly after then, and David Seaman was under a bit of pressure, wasn't he? Because of course there's that.
The Ronaldinho goal.
Yeah, that he definitely meant. I'll still stand by that. He knew exactly what he was doing.
He did.
We've all got an opinion on it, right? We've all got.
No.
Funnily, I'm sure it was you that was reporting on it at the time, Tim. So I'm like, it's strange to be talking to you about it, but it was, fantastic goal that. But off the back of that campaign, and then I heard it in commentary. This would be a ridiculous memory, but I heard it in the commentary. England had just played North Macedonia in the week prior to this game, and we drew it 2-2. Which, of course, you think that's not a good result at the best of times. Never mind the side England had in 2002. So, but David Seaman was at fault, apparently. As I say, these aren't as clear memories for me.
I remember. No, you're absolutely right. That is
the commentator. Is it Clive Tilsley for this game? He keeps going on about it.
Yeah, he kept bringing it up, and we're throwing balls into the box. This is Everton again. Throwing the ball into the box, just putting him under pressure, getting corner after corner, just dropping them right on his head, and he's punching a lot, and he's not his usual reassured self that day, Seaman. And I think a few people in the crowd knew it. As crowds do, they get on the keeper's back as early as they can. So.
Was there any point in the game where Seaman came spurting out of his mouth?
Oh, for fuck's sake, Tim!
I can't resist it.
How long was that? I'm staying out of this one.
Oh, me too. Oh, Flipping out, how are we going to recover from that? Okay. Talking about the gosh, Tim, you've messed my mind up.
Sorry. Well, it's a 1-1 draw, isn't it? That's the way it's a 1-1 draw. You know, I think both sides. Yeah, right. It's a 1-1 draw. No one's going to break the deadlock.
Yeah,
and then
you don't think so, dear. I mean, again, from the home fans' perspective, it gets to, I mean, how late do you want to call it? 85 minutes, where you start thinking, as an Everton fan as well, we've thrown a lot away. You know, we've seen our fair share of last minute winners against us. So, when Rooney comes on, then, and you think, really, is he going to change it for us? Really? Oh, well, I should say we were sure. We knew what was going to happen. Yeah, there was no doubt in our mind whatsoever.
Yesterday, Wrexham, today Arsenal.
Exactly. Yeah, just another one. You know, whoever's in front of us.
I'm glad you didn't get a joke out of that one, but let's leave that to one side. You know, you don't want to, as a fan, obviously, at a moment like that, you do not want to see a kid brought on. But you said that you had already seen him at Wrexham, the wonder kid. How different was your experience of that moment from all the other fans? Did you believe? Did you have hope?
I guess so, yeah. I mean,
yeah, because I'd imagine that the majority of the crowd weren't at Wrexham.
Of course, yeah, not at all.
Yeah.
An away game on a cold Tuesday night in North Wales.
Indeed. Yeah. So you've got privileged information there, haven't you?
Yeah.
So
kind of. I mean, we knew. You know how it is. Rumors spread around pretty fast, don't they? Have you seen the new kid? This new 16-year-old, like, he looks all right. You know, scored a couple midweek. You know, it's the rumors are definitely there. But as you say, not the whole crowd by any stretch of the imagination. The whole crowd are thinking, you know, they're pleased to see it. You're always pleased to see a young local lad come on, so he's going to get a good reaction. But it wasn't like it was a negative substitution, or it wasn't like any of the fans were thinking, you know, what's he thinking? It was okay. If you really think he's good enough for this game, this caliber against these players, fine. Why not? We've got nothing to lose as such. You know, 1-1 draw at home to these high flying Gunners is a good result. So I don't think anyone knew what was coming really, though, did they? The way the goal was scored, and it was absolutely extraordinary, wasn't it? I remember, as you say, it's been replayed and replayed a million times before, but I still see it from how I saw it on the day. You know, that's how
Where were you in the stadium?
So I was near the front row. It was in the family enclosure, which is alongside the dugouts, basically, not far from the touchline, maybe 3 or 4 rows back. So a good view from the side of the pitch, looking across. I remember it as well because, I mean, as I say, we mentioned my age, maybe 10 or 11, and I was there with my little brother and my neighbour, young lad called Austin, and our dads were sat behind us. So instead of us all being together, it felt like it was the first time I felt like I was with my mates. Do you know what I mean? Like all the lads just in the row together. Dads were behind us. We're ignoring them, you know. And I remember the ball dropping to Rooney, and he's about 40 yards out or something. And the midfielder just dropped off him. He just thinks, all right, not scared of you, you know, not going to be worried about this kid. But yeah, as soon as he turned to face the goal, the crowd just lifted, you know, because you just know, don't you? If someone's going to back off in the midfield like that, you know, there's calls for you to shoot. Didn't think he'd hit it that well, mind, but yeah. That was a very, very good memory. In off the bar as well. They always count for more, don't they? I think a bit more exciting.
Oh, and
it's
he
like
meant
a dress
it,
rehearsal of
yeah.
so many moments that he produced after that, you know. And it's extraordinary. I saw him do something a little bit similar here in the Maracanã Stadium when it was reopened and England came over for the reopening in 2013. How much did it hurt you and yours when after not very long he's doing those kind of things for Manchester United?
I know.
It's heartbreaking. It is really sad to see, isn't it? And what really got us as well, where he didn't let do himself any favors, is he kissed the badge as well, didn't he, over at United? That didn't go down well.
But did he not? did he not kiss the badge after he got a lot of abuse from you lot?
Bit of both, isn't it?
Yeah.
6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
Well, I couldn't understand.
If I know anything about Everton fans, they're going to give the abuse.
Yeah, absolutely. And
I remember the abuse I got when I said I wouldn't have signed Funes Mori.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I remember that. I do remember that, actually. That went on for years, didn't it?
No, not that long.
Because he didn't last that long, but
Yeah.
And he wasn't very good.
Right.
Well done, you.
You're not even giving him a chance. You're not even giving him a chance.
How long did it take for Rooney to score that goal from when he came on?
Oh, that is a good question. It was only a few minutes, wasn't it? I think he only came.
Yeah, no, he comes on in the 80th and he scores.
Can't have been more than 10 minutes that he was even on the pitch.
Yeah, scores in the 89th.
I've got a theory about, because it's the kind of, slightly. Anyway, I would have thought it was the kind of Michael Owen scenario against Argentina, famously, but that if you bring a youngster on, he's got to make a very, very quick impact. Otherwise, he kind of, whether they get, demoralized or whatever it is, because they realize it's harder or whatever, they've got to make that impact within a few minutes. And I generally go for within 3 or 4 minutes. So I'm surprised at 10 minutes that he was still grinding it.
Is that too long for you, is it? 10 minutes?
Yeah, it feels like
he's got a very short attention span.
No, it's not for me personally.
No, I know what you mean.
It feels like, get him on. He's really enthusiastic. And after a moment or two, you almost see physically, those who are not on the top level, you almost see the
shock of reality.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's just ebbing away from
you know what? This is harder than I thought it was going to be. This
is a grown-up game,
Yeah.
Well, if anyone's ever going to rise to it in a place like that, it was him. Like he's kind of, a few people have said he's kind of the last generation of kind of like British street footballers. You know what I mean? The lads who will have kicked the ball around on the roads outside. And he continued to do that after the games. You know what I mean? He was at that age where he's got to go to school the next day. Do you know what I mean? He scores. Let's not forget that. He scores that goal against England's #1. He's got to go to school on the Monday afternoon. Like, it's just unbelievable. And to keep playing with his mates. And
could you take any pleasure in goals that he scored like that for United? Could you have that view of,
kind of.
I saw it first.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, I'll never ever admit to enjoying a Man United goal. I think it's not in me. It's not in my nature. But I'm a football fan. I love the game as long as I can be neutral. I mean, all right. I'll give you this. You'll remember his Champions debut, Fenerbahce, at Old Trafford, and he bagged a hat trick, didn't he? So that was a bittersweet moment where you think, okay, here's our lad, local boy, always destined to play at the top. It couldn't be for us because, penniless little Everton trying to cash in on whatever we can. I think we got 27 million pound out of United, paid over about 9 years or something. It's something ridiculous.
That part isn't good, but 26 or whatever it was million was good money at the time.
Yeah, good money if you get it all at the time. That was it though. When it is spread out, I mean, I'm not going to go down the road of complaining about Everton's board and how they deal with things now. I'm trying to enjoy myself, but you never know. Like when he's made that move, you think, okay, couldn't be with us. We're not a Champions League side. And for him to just score 3 great goals on his debut in the Champions League, to see him arrive was like, okay, like it hurt, but it's exciting, isn't it? It's not against us, at least this time. It's not
us. And what about the bicycle kick?
Shinned it, didn't he? It's a great goal. Those are the moments you watch football for, aren't they? As much as you can be a neutral in someone else's derby. Yeah.
Is the seat being? I mean, the seat is needed. What is that Shakespearean phrase about uneasy is the head that wears the crown?
Where's the crown?
And I wonder whether he is the head that wears a crown for Everton in terms of legacy at the club. Return to the club. The idea.
They probably prefer Graham Sharp. You know.
Yeah, I was going to say, are we back onto the rhetoric of football not existing before I was born now? You know,
No, I wasn't thinking of that. But if his legacy were to return, or is to return to Goodison Park, well, he's got a longevity that other players wouldn't have. Do you know what I mean?
I see what you mean. Yeah.
And in two different disciplines, both as coach, which I think he's done quite well. You know, what he did at Derby, wasn't it, when they were like going under financially, I thought was amazing, actually.
I think it's brilliant that he wants to do it. He doesn't need to do it. I think it's fabulous that he wants to do it. It's great.
And he had the moment as well. I mean, it kind of ties in there. What he was doing at Derby was fantastic. When you consider the restraints they were under and how, of course, financially, as you say, administration threatened, things like that. He was still managing to grind out results after points deductions, and what you need in a team to pull that off. You know, when sometimes people aren't getting paid, but you still got that camaraderie in the side. And I'm by no means a Derby County expert, but it certainly looked like he was overachieving at the time and doing really well with those guys. Which has surely got to come from a footballing understanding kind of point of view. You know what I mean? Like,
I think you're 100% right. Well. I think you will remember, you know, in the early days when some of the tabloid papers and they were totally unhelpful. They, you know, it's claimed to be sort of England fans, but totally unhelpful about the way they treated one of England's potential greats at that point when he was quite young, and when, like you say, he was still playing out on the street with his mates, and they were like, you know, here's King Chav for you, sort of thing. And he said something once when he scored that goal, when he scored the bicycle kick goal on Match of the Day or whatever afterwards, the bloke goes to him, well, you know, did you train for that? Did you think about it or whatever? And he says, look, it's got to be instinct, you know, I haven't got time to think about it. But instinct is in other fields regarded as the, you know, most powerful point of intellect. Yeah. Instinct.
It's the muse, isn't it? It's the artistic genius.
Of course. It is the point where you don't have to think. You say you've gone beyond the thinking stage.
Yeah.
And, you know, people regard it as being less worthy. I'm not sure. Because on the pitch, when playing five-a-side, the amount of fast thinking you've got to make, and you think, even with instinct, where do I get to the point where I have the instinct that he's got?
Yeah. And can you teach instinct? You know, like,
you probably can over a period of time, I would have thought. I mean, there might be something extra. Sorry to cut you, by the way.
Oh, no, go ahead. It's a question. I'm curious.
It's a question I've thought about, actually. And I think you can teach it. I'm not saying that it will be the same level for everybody. And clearly, he's got something that he's blessed with. Because I'll tell you what I remember about this match is that he kind of, even as a youngster, he owns the space he's in,
like
a general. He's just got that thing, you know, this is my space.
Yeah.
And I think that's, you know,
where he knows he's good. That lovely swagger. I love a little bit of arrogance.
It is swagger, actually. That's a better word for it. Yeah.
But it's not loud and ostentatious, is it? Never was with Wayne Rooney, but because he doesn't need to be. He doesn't need to shout.
Just a young Scouse kid, just throwing his weight around, and I get it. I totally get it. You know, low center of gravity. Come at me, and you'll bounce straight back off. You know, he had it about. He did. I don't mean to step on anyone else's toes here, but he did an interview for a few of our friends over at Toffee TV recently, where he sat on a couch with them, and there's a great line in this interview where he says, you know, when I got signed up, I got into the first team, and I'm looking around the dressing room, thinking, oh, these are all the lads that I come and watch on a Saturday. I'll sit in the Gladys Street and I watch these players, and now I'm in the same dressing room. And then he says, and then we went out on the training pitch, and I'm thinking, these are crap. That's at 15, 16 years old, you know. So you can tell the attitude he had.
You got to have that, mate. And if he had been in business, you know, he'd be Elon Musk or whoever, you know, that the most successful. You need a little bit of that swagger, I think. Mate, do you remember as an 11-year-old what was in the pop charts at the time? Anything that caught your eye?
Oh gosh, there were some shockers for sure. I think your producer Tommy reminded me earlier of the Coral releasing a nice album that year. They had a good one, the Dreaming of You. That was a classic, wasn't it? I've never been one to follow the charts too closely. Followed the Foo Fighters, I enjoyed around those times as well. They would just come in good post Nirvana, weren't they? But now it makes me nervous to think about what I was listening to at 10, 11 years old, to be honest. It's more of a paranoia than anything else.
You don't have to go there sort of physically. You just go there in your mind, as George Clinton would say, I'll take you there in your mind. Tim, do you want to take him there? Do you want to take Lewis?
Not really.
Oh, so
no. There wasn't what catches your eye from this chart?
Well, it's a good good job you asked me, because I didn't get sent the flipping charts, did I? Or at least I can't see them. How about you?
Right. I didn't find a lot there. I'm not a great Manic Street Preachers fan. It's not really my stuff, although I've got a lot of respect for them. But this one, There by the Grace of God, I think the opening line is something like, all the drugs in the world can't save us from ourselves.
That's not a bad line.
It's a cracking line.
Yeah, it's not
and it probably applies a little bit to the times as well, I think.
Yeah. And were the times changing musically at all?
I don't know. There's a lot of, you know, like LL Cool J doing "Love You Better." You know, there's a lot of pap.
Yeah,
It's very very pap heavy.
Sorry, Lewis, you're the youngster at the time. Did LL Cool J make a bad move going into the love zone, or you more a Mama Said Knock You Out kind of?
Yeah, very much so. I'm of the old school stuff, me. Classic hip hop, and looking back to the 80s, early 90s for some inspiration, really.
So you were just born entirely in all aspects of your life at the wrong time, weren't you?
Yeah. Thanks for that, Tim.
Well, when we're older than you, you know, you'll see. I was at the right time, you guys. But I tell you what, though, the pop stars in the past have often been aligned, whether, you know, as a fan or just as someone who shares the same haircut, with eras of pop music. So in the 70s, you saw them having a little bit longer hair and being into their disco music or whatever. I can't think of the music that I would associate with the Everton side of that day, let alone, you know, just Wayne Rooney or anything. Do you know, I can't think of the music that I would associate with them. And yet you've got a strong musical tradition, certainly in on the terraces. I
would see Wayne as an old style R&B fan.
I don't want to put words in his mouth. You know, I'm not going to speak on his behalf. He's probably going to question whatever I've got to say. I dread to think what was being played in the dressing rooms in those kind of days. To be honest, looking at the charts, it's looking very well. They always look quite pop orientated, don't they? But I'd have struggled with a few of the playlists, I think, at the time.
We're all better off sticking to Z cars.
Yeah, that exactly.
Well, yes, yeah, that's the theme. And what's one that they did to Bolasie? What was that one? Do you remember that one? The Bolasie song. And they didn't do anything for you. Like, he came over from Palace and then got injured, didn't he? But but he got a song out of it. So it's almost like worthwhile.
I'm not going to recall it now, I'm afraid. I wish I'd been prepped for that one.
Yeah, don't worry. Don't worry. It's not that kind of podcast, but it's great having you on, though, to talk about this particular match, which is a classic. Mate, I've enjoyed it so much. Welcome back at any time, you know. Really do. And just very quickly, the Everton Heritage Society, what is it about?
Right, yeah. So I guess I've got a little thing to plug here, in that we what the Heritage Society is it's a foundation that was set up by Sir David France back in 2008, and it's basically a branch of the club that looks after and gives a nod to the history and the heritage of Everton, to ensure that Everton don't lose touch with its past. You know, it means so much to us, and so we get involved in a lot of things. A lot of our members have written books. There are a lot of academic guys. We've been doing things like grave restorations, making sure that players and legends of our past are not being forgotten. Of course, we're approaching November now, so there'll be things like Remembrance Sunday, tributes and stories of fallen soldiers, things like this. So we do a lot of work on the history of Everton and promoting it as best we can, and trying to spread the word and keeping it all alive, basically. And the reason I've been brought in recently is we're now going to make a little bit venture into filmmaking as well. So we've just started with the first couple of documentaries, which you can find on YouTube. The first is a story about a man called Thomas Keats, who was the first ever director, or he's the first director of Everton, but he also wrote the first history of the club on a 50th Jubilee year in 1929. So a lot of Everton's a lot of football's very early history is owed to that guy writing it all down. And then the one we've just released is a story on Everton Village, and the birth of the football club itself, and where it came from, where the crest comes from, early days of the club. And that's hosted by a man called Ken Rogers, who was the reporter for the Liverpool Echo, sports reporter for many years. So he had close affiliations with a lot of players and people like Howard Kendall over the years. So it's a really interesting watch. The guys who are in front of the camera know a hell of a lot about every little thing Everton, and whether you're a toffee or not, I think it's a really good little documentary into the early days of football history, and it's the first of many as well. We're looking to make it a long-term venture that we can, really embellish and share more stories with people.
There in your pocket, you've got the story of the Blues.
Exactly. I've got some geniuses at my fingertips here that have written countless books on countless topics. So I'm looking forward to sharing what they've got to say with the world, and sharing our proud history. It may not be the proudest in recent years, but we're a very proud bunch up in Liverpool. So yeah, hopefully we can teach a few more youngsters about the big name that we are and will be again one day.
It's called the Dixie Dean Blues.
Something like that, yeah. Something along those lines.
Really, thank you, Lewis. This has been amazing.
It's been a real pleasure, boys. It's an honor. Thank you very much for having me.
Pleasure.